National Board of Assessors to order at 9 a.m. on Thursday, June 3rd, 2021. I would ask everyone to bear with me because I'm obliged to read a rather lengthy opening statement. Good morning and welcome to the June 3rd, 2021 Board of Assessors meeting. As Chair of the Board of Assessors, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the Governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the Governor's Emergency Order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-4, this body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the Governor's Emergency Order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom through the city's IT department for this electronic meeting. All members of the Board of Assessors have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen into this meeting through dialing the following number, 929-205-6099. Once again, that number is 929-205-6099. And using the meeting ID number 822-4878-5345. And once again, the meeting ID number is 822-4878-5345. And password of 989839. And once again, that number is 989839. The public may also view this meeting on Comcast Channel 16. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting through public postings. Instructions have also been provided on the City of Nashua's website at nashuanewhampshire.gov and publicly noticed at City Hall and the National Library. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem accessing the meeting via phone or channel 16, please call 603-821-2049. And once again, that number is 603-821-2049, and they will help you connect. D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting via the methods mentioned above, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, the reason they are not able to attend the meeting in person, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. So at this time, I will call the roll. Mr. Early.
This is Robert Early, member of the Board of Assessors. I am following the Governor's executive order and joining the meeting remotely from home. There's no one here in the room with me.
Mr. Bergeron. Mr. Bergeron does not appear to be present. And I am Daniel Hansberry, a member of the Board of Assessors. I'm following the Governor's order to join the meeting remotely, and I am at home and there's no one in the room with me. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the minutes from the board meeting of Thursday, May 20th, 2021, accept them and place them on file?
So moved. Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have a quick question on the minutes. Typically, when a person is quoted, their name comes first and it's underlined. There are several situations in the recent minutes, it may have happened before, I just didn't notice it, where my name is underlined with 2 question marks, as if it looks like they weren't sure if I was the person who, typically it's on when a motion is moved, because I've been the one to move the motions. And I didn't know if they thought that they didn't know it was me, or if they were saying that you were asking me to move the motion. So in the future, they shouldn't have the question marks. Just for expediency, I've been moving any motions so we didn't have confusion, and Paul did the second. Lindsay, does that make sense? I don't know who makes up the minutes, but
Oh, yes. Trish has been doing the minutes. She's been taking that over. So I believe, yes, she wasn't sure if it was yourself speaking or Paul.
Okay,
Yeah, so going forward, we'll make sure that's clear and we'll take
okay.
that out.
And is there a second? I'll second it. So other than the, what Mr. Early noticed, are there any other errors or corrections? Okay. All right, so I will call the roll. We're voting on accepting the minutes as corrected. Mr. Early,
Yes,
Mr. Hansberry, yes, motion is adopted. Is there a motion to waive the reading and place on file the non-public meeting minutes from the board meeting of Thursday, May 20th, 2021?
so moved.
Is there a second? Are there any errors or corrections? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes,
Mr. Hansberry, yes, motion is adopted. At this time, I will recognize Richard Vincent, who's the department head for our assessing department, for a department update. Mr. Vincent?
Good morning and thank you. We have Mike Torello and Steve Whalen from Vision Government Solutions to give us an update on the reevaluation status. I'll turn it over to Mike.
Okay. All right. Mr.
Hi,
Torello,
good
go
morning,
ahead.
everyone.
Good morning.
morning.
All right, June Perry couldn't make it today, so Steve and I will give the presentation. So where we stand right now is, as we've been going along, we've now printed all the property record cards for all wards 1 through 9 for the data collection. We are now in Ward 9, way to wrap up the last ward of the exterior inspections. So to date, we have measured about 21,834 out of the 25,605 residential properties, which is about 85%. We're at 85%. As for the commercials, we have inspect and measured in exterior inspections of 893 out of the 1,964, and we are 45% complete there. So we're continuing on, and we're in the last ward for the residential. Everything else going forward, the fear review is scheduled to be completed in 2022, which is the valuation review of the work. And then we are planning still to have the hearings and impact notices in July, and then July and August for the hearings. We are planning on in July to send out the first letters to Ward 1 for the callback interior inspections. So we'll be sending a letter out that we've given to Mr. Vincent for him to approve, to go out ward by ward for us to set up calls and for appointments to do the interior inspections. Most likely those will begin sometime in mid to late July. And then we'll continue that process through all the wards, one ward at a time. So that's pretty much where we stand right now. Are there any questions or other items that you would like to discuss?
Questions for Mr. Torello? Okay, I have a question, Mr. Torello. Homes that are suffering from benign neglect, how are those treated? I know that Nashua has an approach that they use, and I'm just wondering if it's a statewide, nationwide process. I'll give you a concrete example. I was talking to a contractor, this was years ago, and it was a property, not Nashua, one of the nearby towns. And he was called out to give a quote on some work that had to be done. And through neglect, there was $50,000 worth of carpentry work, just carpentry work that had to be done. And the person who owned the house was an MD, so it would appear that income was not a problem on properly maintaining the home. When you inspect a house like that, are you required to make a downward adjustment on the value? Is it incumbent upon you to do that?
Yeah, as part of the process, there's a couple sections that we look at that relate to this. First of all, it's the quality of construction. We'll identify if it's average grade, above grade, and those are the materials that were used to build it. Then there's the portion that's the depreciation part, where the wear and tear you're talking about, the neglect, deferred maintenance, and those types of things. Those will be categorized through our depreciation levels of, excellent or totally renovated to very good, good, average, fair, below average, fair, poor, or even situations where there's added functional obsolescence because of the disrepair. So we look at it from every level of what the property is in and make a determination of where it stands at that time of the inspection.
And then that obviously is going to have an impact on the value of the home, correct?
A lower rating creates a lower value, right?
Okay. And that's consistent throughout the country?
I don't know about the country. It's consistent how we do it in New England and some of the other states that we work in, like New York, Virginia, and so forth. Yes.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Torello?
I have no other questions.
Okay, the staff members have any questions? Okay. All right, well, thank you very much.
Okay, have a good day.
Thanks, you too. Okay. Going to make a slight adjustment to the agenda at the request of Director of Administrative Services, Kimberly Kleiner, because she has an update, breaking news relative to being able to meet at City Hall going forward. So I'm going to recognize Director Kleiner for the update. Director Kleiner.
Good morning, and I apologize for the noise outside of my office. We have some construction going on, so if you can't hear me, please let me know. So we have been advised by counsel who's on the call, so I'll let him speak better to the subject, that public meetings of public bodies meet in person as of the 12th. You have a meeting scheduled for the 17th and the 30th. We are currently working with all of the meetings and boards to use room 208, which you may know, that's where the Board of Assessors began meeting before moving to the City Auditorium. We are arranging, CTV and IT are working hard to enable that room to allow both Zoom and in person. So this is a hybrid model where people will be able to call in via Zoom. You will see them, the audience will see them, but the audience will also see and hear you in person from room 208. We would like to arrange a time with the board to walk you through this new process. And we hope to have that available for your meeting on the 17th. But it would be in room 208 because the City Auditorium is being utilized right now for the city clerk. So we don't expect that room to become available until mid-July.
Questions for Director Kleiner?
No questions.
Director Kleiner, just with the layout in room 208, if 10 or 15 people show up, with the way it had been laid out historically, the board is sitting with their backs to at least some of the people that are in the room. Is that going to be addressed?
That will be addressed. So we are rearranging that room. There's other public boards that need to be able to see and have presenters. So you'll have a table at the center, at one side of the room, and you'll have the audience in front of you. Both will have access to new screens that have been installed on the walls. So it will be a new layout, not the original table that you are used to seeing in that room.
Thank you. All right. New business. At this time, I will recognize Greg Turgis, who has a timber tax warrant for us. Mr. Greg Turgis.
How you doing? Thank you. So what I have for you today is the warrant for a report of wood cut for Edgestone Properties. Does the board have any questions regarding that warrant?
Are there any questions for Mr. Turgis?
No questions.
Okay. There's music coming through. I don't know where that's coming from. It
Yeah, I'm
just
sorry
stopped.
about that. That's taken care of.
Okay, all right. Okay, is there a motion to grant the warrant for report of wood or timber tax cut identified as map D, lot 23?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll for approval of the warrant. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Does that conclude your report, Mr. Turgis?
It does. Thank you.
And thank you. This time I will recognize Michael Mandiel, who has a number of abatement recommendations for the board. Mr. Mandiel?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Early. Yes, my first one is on 44 Indian Rock Road. The city recommends that the assessment be lowered from $399,700 to $281,100 based on condition. Does the board have any questions for me?
Questions for Mr. Mandiel?
Yes, I have a question. It's the 281,100. What would the market value be on that? Were we using 83%?
Correct.
So
correct.
that puts it around the 340, which is what the owner thought the market value was.
Right, it bring you to 338,674.
Okay. And do you know if they have plans to do the work that's needed?
They're trying to do it on their own, and it's going very slowly. I think funds are an issue here.
Does that house have an entire crawl space or does it have any basement at all?
Portion of it has a basement and a portion of it is crawl space, both.
Okay. I mean, I see now that the value is around 428,000 in today's market, but assuming the repairs were done, but I have no other questions.
I realize this is a new purchase for the particular property owner, Mr. Mandiel.
Yep.
Is there any kind of a pattern when a home falls into neglect? I mean, is it frequently someone who's maybe gotten along in years and normally maintain the home and is having health problems and their physical condition becomes a priority and the home begins to get neglected? Or are there as many reasons as there are homes that are in need of updating?
Yeah, the latter. There are all kinds of reasons that the home will go into neglect. It could be just apathy. And it also could be because the folks are getting a little older, the resources are dwindling and they can't keep it up.
I believe that's what happened to this one. I noticed on the MLS listing, it looked as though an elderly person had lived there in the past and it had been vacant for 2 years. So.
That's correct.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 44 Indian Rock Road from $399,700 to $281,100?
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry? Yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Mandiel?
Second property is located on 2 Glen Drive. This is off of Northeast Boulevard. The city recommends lowering the assessment from $248,100 to $207,500. This is based both on condition and comparable sales. Does the board have any questions for me?
Are there any questions for Mr. Mandiel?
No questions.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 2 Glen Drive from $248,100 to $207,500.
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Mandiel,
My third property is at 30 Atherton Avenue. The city recommends lowering the assessment from 240,600 to 188,600. This is based solely on condition of the property at the time on April 1st of 2020. The taxpayers are currently working on it, making improvements. This will be changed. The assessment will be changed for 2021.
all right, are there questions for Mr. Mandiel?
No questions.
Is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 30 Atherton Avenue from $240,600 to $188,600?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'm sorry, I second it. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. I've got a piece of power equipment running, I guess, in my neighbor's backyard. Mr. Mandiel,
The fourth property is located at 41 Indian Rock Road. The city recommends lowering the assessment from 409,300 to 371,000 based on comparable sales. Does the board have any questions for me?
are there any questions for Mr. Mandiel?
No questions.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 41 Indian Rock Road from $409,300 to $371,000?
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Mandiel,
Okay, the next half dozen abatement applications I have here are all located on 5 Caleb Street. This is a new development, new construction. The city made an estimate of value that turned out to be a bit high, so we made a uniform adjustment to all of these abatement applications. The first one located at 5 Caleb Street, the city recommends lowering the assessment from $424,400 to $395,200. Does the board have any questions for me?
questions for Mr. Mandiel?
No questions.
So this wasn't a case of like the homeowners association getting together and somebody kind of leading the charge and saying, gee, I think our properties are all overvalued.
Someone did lead the charge on this. All of these abatement applications were prepared by a single taxpayer that was presented to the homeowner, and they simply signed them and submitted them.
Okay, all right. Anything else for Mr. Mandiel? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 5 Caleb Street from $424,400 to $395,200?
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second it. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Mandiel,
7 Caleb Street, the city recommends lowering the assessment from $423,800 to $387,100. Does the board have any questions for me?
any questions for Mr. Mandiel?
No questions.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 7 Caleb Street from $423,800 to $387,100?
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Mandiel,
Next property is at 8 Caleb Street. The city recommends lowering the assessment from $365,700 to $339,600. Are there any questions?
No questions.
so the individual that approached the homeowners, they had to do their own assessment for each individual property, correct?
Correct. They produced a grid for the entire development. And I should note that the entire development is being adjusted, not just the ones that filed for an abatement. Yes, they did. The taxpayer that prepared the abatement application did prepare a grid.
And was there like a percentage reduction across the board, or it was individualized for each property?
It seemed to be a percentage also adjusted for time that the property, when the property was built. This development is a little different in that it was built over a period of about 3 years. So they made adjustments for time as well as for the percentage. What we did here was just made a change to the neighborhood code factor for a uniform adjustment for the entire neighborhood.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 8 Caleb Street from $365,700 to $339,600?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Mandel?
Next property is at 9 Caleb Street. The city recommends lowering the assessment from $364,700 to $338,600. Are there any questions?
No questions.
Just, there's a typo.
Oh.
When it goes to the motion to deny the abatement. Okay, the motion to approve the abatement has 8 Caleb down. The motion to deny the abatement has 8 Caleb down. That should be 9, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so just make that adjustment.
I apologize.
That's all right. That's okay. All right, is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 9 Caleb Street from $364,700 to $338,600?
So moved.
Okay, I will second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Mandel?
Next property is at 10 Caleb Street. The city recommends lowering the assessment from $462,600 to $429,700. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Mandel?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 10 Caleb Street from $462,700 to $429,700?
So moved.
I will second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Mandel?
My last abatement application is for 11 Caleb Street. The city recommends lowering the assessment from $410,200 to $380,900. Does the board have any questions for me?
Any
No
questions?
questions.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located, excuse me, at 11 Caleb Street, from $410,200 to $380,900?
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second that. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Mandel?
That is all I have
Okay.
for today.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Early.
Thank you,
very
Mike.
much. Okay, at this time, excuse me, I will recognize Mr. Gary Turgis, who has a number of abatement recommendations for us. Mr. Turgis?
Good morning, board. The properties that I have to present are out on Pasture Lane. It's a brand new development. They are all detached condominium style properties. There's 3 to 4 different styles out there. Some have 2-car garages, some have 1-car garages. there's a variation on the size and style of the home. The first one that I have is on 39 Pasture Lane. The city of Nashua would like to recommend reducing the assessment from 339.8 to 299.8. Similar to Caleb Street, the city realized that the assessments were, because of the new development, the estimate on the assessments were higher than the market values were indicating. And so we did a across the board adjustment on the entire neighborhood. So even those that did not file abatements also got the same reduction in assessment based on the style and the characteristics of the property. So on the first one, 39 Pasture Lane would like to recommend a reduction of from 339.8 to 299.8. Any questions for the board?
Questions for Mr. Turgis?
Yes, Gary, the original sales prices, were they set by the builder? Is that how it happened? And
The
then
original sale prices, yes, they were set by the builder, but we did not have actual sales data at the time that the tables were being set up. And as the sales data came in, it was the taxpayers notified us. So obviously with the number of abatements that we received out there, again, there was an individual who provided the residents with a grid and indicated that they were over-assessed, and the taxpayers got together and filed abatements on their properties.
Are these two developments related to the same builder or anything?
I don't believe they are the same builder, no.
I have no other questions.
Okay. And is it similar to what Mr. Mandiel said, Mr. Turgis, that there was a percentage across the board? And
Yeah, that the city adjusted them by making a change to the neighborhood code. That's when we took a look at that, they seem to fit back in more in line with the ratio of 83%.
And then is this similar where these homes went up over a period of time? They also had to be adjusted for age, or that did not factor in?
They did not have to be adjusted for age, as they were put up pretty quickly in 2019 and 2020.
Okay, all right. I think Raisin was the builder for what Mr. Mandiel presented, if I remember right. And was this Edgestone, maybe?
This is Edgestone, yes.
Yeah, so it was two different contractors that did it. Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at, excuse me, 39 Pasture Lane from $339,800 to $299,800?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry? Yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Turgis?
The next property I have is 37 Pasture Lane. This was a similar property to the one we just discussed. Again, this one, the city is recommending a reduction of 339.8 to 299.8.
Is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 39 Pasture Lane?
37.
37 Pasture Lane, sorry. 37 Pasture Lane from $339,800 to $299,800.
So moved.
I will second that. Is there any discussion? Any questions for Mr. Turgis? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry? Yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Turgis?
The next property that I have is 35 Pasture Lane. The city is recommending a reduction of the assessment from 349.2 to 307.8.
Is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 35 Pasture Lane from $349,200 to $307,800?
So moved.
I will second that. Is there any discussion or any questions for Mr. Turgis? Seeing that, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Turgis,
The next property is 33 Pasture Lane. The city recommends reducing the assessment from 351,700 to 310,300. Any questions?
is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 33 Pasture Lane from $351,700 to $310,300?
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second that. And where are these properties located, Mr. Turgis?
They're in the Thompson Preserve neighborhood. Pasture Lane is off Gilson Road.
Okay, all right. Okay. Any other questions or further discussion?
No.
Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes, motion is adopted. Mr. Turgis,
Okay, the next property that I have is 31 Pasture Lane. The city is recommending a reduction of assessment from 345,000 to 304,400.
are there any questions for Mr. Turgis?
No.
All right, is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 31 Pasture Lane from $345,000 to $304,400?
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes, motion is adopted.
Okay, the next property I have is at 29 Pasture Lane. The city is recommending a reduction of assessment from 322,900 to 284,600. Any questions?
No questions.
There a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 29 Pasture Lane from $322,900 to $284,600.
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second that. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Turgis,
The next property is located at 27 Pasture Lane. The city is recommending reducing the assessment from 333,200 to 294,000. Any questions?
No questions.
is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 27 Pasture Lane from $333,200 to $294,000?
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second that. Any discussion? So, Mr. Church, when we were given the numbers for the abatement filing deadline, the total number of abatements that had been submitted, these numbers are rolled into that, right? These properties are rolled into that number?
That is correct.
Okay, all right. Any other questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Turgis,
The next property is 25 Pasture Lane. The city is recommending a reduction in assessment from 338,200 to 300,600. Any questions on this one?
No questions.
is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 25 Pasture Lane from $338,200 to $300,600?
So moved.
There is second. I will second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Turgis,
The next property is 23 Pasture Lane. The city is recommending a reduction of assessment from 337,300 to 297,300. Any questions on this one?
No questions.
is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 23 Pasture Lane from $337,300 to $297,300?
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
yes,
Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Turgis.
The next property is 21 Pasture Lane. The city is recommending a reduction of assessment from 331,900 to a new assessment of 292,900. Any questions?
no questions,
Is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 21 Pasture Lane from $331,900 to $292,900?
so moved,
Is there a second? I will second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
yes,
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Turgis.
The next property is 17 Pasture Lane. The city is recommending a reduction of assessment from 337,300 to 299,800. Any questions?
no questions.
Is there much room left, much land left to be built on in Nashua?
I don't think so. I'm surprised every time there is a new development, actually.
I can remember talking to somebody years ago when I was on the school board, and it was somebody from the planning department. And we chatted in the parking lot of the central office building after the meeting. This would have been back in probably it must have been the early 2000s, late 90s. And he was saying then that Nashua was basically built out. And he said the only way that the population could really increase is if there was to be rezoning. And I mean, you're seeing some of that, like with the old Nashua Corporation on Franklin Street, but they keep coming up with land, don't they?
They do.
It's just amazing. Okay, any further discussion or questions? All right, is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 17 Pasture Lane from $337,300 to $299,800?
So moved,
Is there a second? I will second that. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
yes,
Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Turgis.
The next property is located at 22 Pasture Lane. The city is recommending a reduction of assessment from $339,800 to $299,800. Any question?
no questions,
Is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 22 Pasture Lane from $339,800 to $299,800?
so moved,
Is there a second? I will second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
yes,
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Turgis.
The next property is 24 Pasture Lane. The city is recommending an assessment reduction from 346,300 to 310,300. Any questions?
no questions,
Is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 24 Pasture Lane from $346,300 to $310,300?
so moved,
Is there a second? I will second that. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
yes,
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Turgis.
The next property is located at 28 Pasture Lane. The city is recommending a reduction of assessment from 330,700 to 291,500. Are there any questions on this one?
no questions,
Okay, is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 28 Pasture Lane from $300,700 to $291,500?
from 330,700,
Yeah, $330,700 to $291,500.
so moved,
Okay, is there a second? I will second that. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
yes,
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Turgis.
The last one is 30 Pasture Lane. The city is recommending a reduction of assessment from 337,300 down to 297,300. Any questions?
no questions,
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at 30 Pasture Lane from $337,300 to $297,300?
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Ms. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Does that conclude your report, Mr. Turgis?
Yep, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, board.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay. Let me get the motion. Is there a motion to go into non-public session for two reasons? First, to discuss matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of this board, unless such person requests an open meeting. This exemption shall extend to include any application for assistance or tax abatement or waiver of a fee, fine, or other levy if based on inability to pay or poverty of the applicant pursuant to RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, parenthetical C. Second, under 90, yes.
I'm sorry, but are we out of sequence here? Should we do the public comment first?
Yes, you're right. Okay, sorry. Thank you. Jumping back here. Okay. Is there any unfinished business to come before the board? Any unfinished business? Okay. Is there public comment?
Yes, Lori Ortolano.
And could you state your address for the record, please?
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. Thank you, Mr. Early, for catching that. And I hope if I interrupted, and I was going to remind you that I wouldn't have been cut off. Couple things, and let me start my timer on my phone so I'm mindful of my time. Couple of things. The last meeting I talked about the commercial sales data that's going to be used to build the model. And I was unhappy with Dan's response to that. And Mr. Torello, I'm going to write a letter to Vision and CC the Board of Assessors on it. You know, I agree that Mr. Torello believes that Nashua is going to recover well from this pandemic, particularly given the location of Nashua. However, the sales data is based on the 2020 and 2021 commercial property sales. And that is in the heart of the pandemic. And we have an overlay account this year that's showing $6 million in the overlay, largely because of abatements, which is 3 times what we would typically carry, which I believe is a result of the pandemic situation. So is Vision not going to use the sales data from 2020 to build the model for the revaluation, or are they weighing it differently? Because I believe that will affect the assessment levels and the distribution of equity and proportionment between commercial properties and residential properties. Secondly, I want to thank the assessors for granting the abatements that they did today. I very much appreciate their work. Third, I want the board to know, the board, Mr. Hansberry mentioned and wanted to know how these abatements were filed and came about. And Mr. Mandile said it was one person and he wanted to know if there was evidence submitted. You know what? To the entire board, if you complied with the state law to review abatement applications, like I believe it's your duty, you would know that answer. And I think it's important you know that answer on your own and not leave it to the assessors to do that. 3, the abatement. I have an abatement for 2020 for 41 Berkeley Street. I want to make you aware of that because I think the process that Nashua uses to let abatements expire without reviewing them is based on bad faith, ill will, and a dereliction of duty. I've written to our senators to request a legislative change in the bill, and I'm hoping that will happen. And also, I have written to all the chiefs in the state on an email to get assistance on how to change this language. I think Nashua is doing a very poor job with these abatements. And when they have a war and a personal vendetta with a property owner, they are pushing every button and every limit to not perform their duties under what, the responsibilities of what the ASB, the DRA, and the state intended. Also, finally, the opening of City Hall on June 7th, I received a press release that showed that the only department maintaining closure was assessing, which shocked me, actually. I got it yesterday. I had a conversation with Ms. Kleiner, who informed me there was an error in the press release. I asked if it was going to be corrected. I did not receive a response yet, but it's almost startling to me because it's her responsibility and Mr. Vincent's somebody had to give the information to the mayor's office on the opening of the assessing office. We've had criminal issues. I've been arrested. I do not want that to happen again. It's really important that there be clarity on how the office is being opened and how the operation will run. And it's just startling that a press release could go out that shows that the only office in City Hall not open to pre-pandemic position was assessing. I'm glad to hear it's a mistake, but I think we should put something out in writing to fix that. Thank you.
Okay, I just reminded the members of the public, I should have said this at the beginning, that there is a 5-minute limitation per speaker. So is there a second person to speak, Director Kleiner?
There are 2 other members of the public that are on the meeting. If any wish to speak.
Yes, Alderman Lowe, yes, go ahead. You're on mute. You've got to unmute, Alderman Lowe. Alderman Lowe, you're muted.
Should be good now.
Okay, go ahead. No, she's not coming. You're not coming through. You're still, yeah, you're not coming through, Alderman Lowe. Director Kleiner, is there anything we can do to help that situation out?
Yeah, I will try to mute and ask her to unmute from here. Other than that, there's little I can do.
She said 1 minute.
When is there another person waiting to speak and we can come back to Alderman Lowe and maybe we can get that problem rectified in the meantime?
Chair, I see no one else stepping forward to speak. If acceptable to the board, I would just like to point out to the board and to members of the public that the information on our website is correct regarding the opening, and members of the public should check there. I also believe there was a clarification made in the local newspaper, at least the online version. I do want to note this is a clarification. There was some question about whether appointments would still be necessary. I believe that the original press release did say walk-ins were allowed. It did mention something about appointments. That has been removed. It did also mention the 15-minute time limit, and that has been removed. So the information on our website and in the Telegraph online is correct.
I think I'm all set now.
Okay, all right, go right ahead, Alderman Lowe.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I wanted to bring your attention to Article 5.5 of our ordinances. I feel that there's been a lot of controversy and concern that about the sealing and possibly failure to unseal minutes, which I spoke about last meeting. 5.5 suggests that because, or states, I should say, that because the Board of Aldermen are responsible for, policy making and responsibility for matters, involving the citizens, that it's important that we be able to, well, it's encouraged according to Article C under that they be given access to the non-public sessions. The reason I think this would be important to be allowed to enter the non-public is that there are claims being made about shortcomings of the city agencies and agents. And I feel that I can't become informed about that without being admitted into the non-public session as well. So that's what I wanted to request. Thank you.
And I just read this legal advisory that was issued by Attorney Leonard, let's see when it was dated. September 30th, 2020, regarding what you're referencing. Lastly, in determining who may stay or not in a non-public session, the board may wish to consider NRO 5-5C, which urges boards to invite the mayor and aldermen to non-public sessions in which issues are discussed that are relevant to decisions, deliberations, or votes made by the mayor or board of aldermen. So it's up to us to have to determine whether or not what's being discussed is germane to that particular ordinance. And historically, we've made the decision based on what was going to be discussed that it would not be germane to what was stated in the legal advisory from Attorney Leonard. And each case is handled on an individual basis. So it depends upon the nature of what's being discussed in non-public. And if it doesn't have general applicability to the Board of Aldermen, then the Board of Aldermen are denied access to the non-public session. Okay, are there any comments by members of the board?
No.
Okay, all right, so I think I've got it right this time. Is there a motion to go into non-public session for two reasons? First, to discuss matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of this board, unless such person requests an open meeting. This exemption shall extend to include any application for assistance or tax abatement or waiver of a fee, fine, or other levy, if based on inability to pay or poverty of the applicant pursuant to RSA 91-A:3 Roman numeral 2, parenthetical C, second under 91-A:3 Roman numeral 2, parenthetical L, for the consideration of legal advice provided by legal counsel either in writing or orally to one or other members of this public body, even where legal counsel is not present.
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second that. I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Let the record show that we have entered non-public session at 9:57 a.m. and I will wait for the green light.